Friday, September 12th. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. Today on the show, listening to people, folklore on the radio. By the way, when you're good at listening, you can make radio gold. The Folklore department at MUN has turned out some radio stars. We've got a sampling of them here today, and some great folks for the whole conversation. Okay, there's a thing at the university, at the rooms this evening, and this is the test of how the conversation goes. And you can take all the best bits and focus it into such a great evening. Who wants to start by talking about just how all of this got together, and then we can do a little introduction of everyone together. Holly or Kelley, who wants to start?
So I can start.
Give us a good introduction of yourself, too.
Great. My name's Kelley Totten. I'm an associate professor of folklore at Memorial University, and this is an event we're really excited about. It's part of a series of events we're doing that's sponsored by MUNFLA, the Folklore and Language Archive, and funded through the 100-year anniversary, Memorial's 100-year anniversary fund. So we've brought in some of our, as you said, radio stars, some of our alumni who've been making audio production and sound production. And so this is a chance for us to have this roundtable at the rooms and kind of talk about what we can do with a folklore degree is one of the things, but also just I'm a big radio fan, so this is a kind of a dream of mine to bring all these great people together to learn more about what they're doing and hear how they're using folklore and the folklore skills in their radio production, and then also, how radio production kind of informs how they understand people and listening to people. So, what is it that you love about radio?
And you're in a safe space for this discussion.
I know. I have it on all the time. I grew up with it. Like it's nostalgic for me as well, because I grew up having the radio on at my grandparents' house, and my mom always had it on in the mornings too. So I can't wake up without the radio on. When I moved here, it's how I learn about places as well. So when I moved here, I turned on CBC in the morning. I listened to the other stations as well, because you can learn so much about a place through what they're reporting on the radio and through the people that call in. You have such an interesting calling culture, I think, in Newfoundland. I've just been here since 2018. So it's been, it's how I learn about places is through the radio.
Arlette Lazarenko in the background. Clip all of that for the promos later for putting stuff out, because it is really important. No, it's great to hear. Like it is really nice. Tell us who else is with us today, too.
So, yes, we have, Holly Everett is a professor at Memorial as well, our esteemed professor, Dr. Everett. He has a history of working on the radio as well.
How does it feel to be esteemed?
Oh, it feels really great. Yeah. I'm enjoying it.
Give us a brief introduction of yourself.
I am also an associate professor in the Department of Folklore at Memorial. Mm-hmm. I've been here for a minute longer than Kelley. Yeah. I first came to St. John's in 1996, and one of my careers before I became a folklorist was being a radio DJ.
FMA, like where was it? Tell me more about this. And where was it?
In Austin, Texas. I started at the University of Texas as a radio, television, and film major, and they were just trying to get a student-run radio station on the go at that time. And so I thought, well, I'll do that. That sounds important. And from there, I got a job at a classical radio station, a nonprofit station. And so I was working at the student radio station and the classical station at the same time. And then I got another job at a classic rock station in Austin, Z102. And
See, there it is. This is what I was waiting for this whole time.
And so for a while I was working at those three stations at the same time. And yes, I did get confused. And I was basically sleeping when I wasn't on the radio because I did my share of night shifts. And then right before I came here, I was also working for an astronomy radio show called Earth and Sky.
Cool. That's cool. Yeah. All right. There's a lot to dig into there. Kelley, who else is with us?
So we also have Rebecca Nolan, who's here from got her undergraduate degree with us. You're going to have to remind us the year, and lives out at Petty Harbor.
Yeah. I got the degree 2017. my brain is telling me that that's probably right. Yeah, that sounds about right.
And tell us about Windswept Radio and yourself.
Yeah, so I'm originally from California. I came out here specifically to study folklore. I didn't know Newfoundland existed until I found the folklore program because American education systems. But then I came out here and I totally fell in love. I fell in love with folklore. I fell in love with Newfoundlanders through interviewing them and through doing folklore. And then I found radio. Through folklore, actually. Annie McEwen, who's going to be on later, kind of came and introduced me.
Yeah. That's a pretty good person to introduce you to radio.
Oh, yeah.
Huh? And what is it about radio that speaks to you so much?
It's storytelling. I love storytelling. And it's such a beautiful human connection and an intimate human connection coming just through audio. I mean, the thing that we say in radio, I think, is that radio is the most visual medium because you have to create the imaginary visuals in your head. And I really love that.
Yeah. Same, right? Like when you're listening to radio and like there's whether it's description or sound, something from a place, and you're like kind of imagining what it is and the location and what's happening as you hear these voices and the story unfold. It's special.
Definitely.
And you mentioned, but who's on the line?
Yeah, so we also have Annie McEwen, the famous Annie McEwen, who graduated from our MA program. Yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I mean, esteemed. Yeah, we can hear you.
Esteemed Annie McEwen.
We have two esteems here now.
In this room. I gotta say, like, the voices of these women that I'm just hearing talking are incredible radio voice. Like, I forgot, Holly, your voice is amazing.
Thanks.
Such a good radio voice. Yes, so hello, I'm remote in my friend's house at the moment because I have a 4-month-old in my arms, so he might make a few noises here and there. Okay. So just to warn, he's not worked on his radio chops yet. Yeah, so my name is Annie McEwen. I did the master's program at MUN in 2009, and then through a long and winding road, much of it nudged along by the folklore, the loving folklore profs, as well as meeting up with Chris Brooks and falling under his mentorship, led me to work in New York City at the podcast Radiolab for New York Public Radio. And that has just been overwhelming and amazing. And really, it couldn't have happened without stumbling into the folklore program at MUN. So I have everyone there to thank.
Annie, tell folks about Radiolab.
Okay. It's a show. It's a lot of science. It's a documentary show. So we try to make true things as entertaining as possible using a lot of sound design, and it's very heavily edited, which some people find distasteful. I actually at first found it pretty annoying, but then I got used to it. But it's a lot of interrupting and back and forth and zippity zappity sound design and clips that are intercut in a very sort of quick way. But yeah, we do science, but we also do history. We do human interest. We kind of cover anything that is story shaped and hopefully surprising. We will talk about it. We will make that show. Yeah, and it's been around for 20 years or so, I think, as a podcast as well as a radio show.
Yeah, before when we were kind of all getting sat down here before the show today, and myself and Rebecca I just mentioned my entry into really appreciating radio. It came through two shows. In podcast form, when I was living overseas, it was Radiolab and This American Life, right? Like these are the ones that really pulled me in the beginning because they were just so great. Because I grew up, for radio was like listening, like my folks listened to VOCM. So we listened to VOCM growing up in the morning and then if we were home on holiday, open line would be on. And for me, CBC was television. And then I ended up getting hired by CBC, and I had to listen to a bunch of CBC radio, and I started to appreciate it. But it was like that was my radio journey. But the appreciation for radio, really, it was in my 20s and listening to, This American Life and Radiolab.
That's funny. It's the opposite for me. I grew up listening to CBC, and then when I got the job at Radiolab, I was like, I guess I should listen to this show. And I was like, this is overwhelming. These people need to calm down, slow down. So yeah, total opposite.
All right, so we'll start to and with you on the line, just chime we will check back with you. We won't leave you alone, but chime in whenever you want to as well. It doesn't matter if you step on us. It is all good. All right, so let's today is these roots of folklore and growing in these great, I don't know, with the metaphor I'm using here, some radio trees or something. But it's what is it about folklore? Like, what is it about folklore and education that like you think can fit so well with matching? Because we already kind of mentioned it with storytelling, but like let's go into a little bit more.
Well, one of the things that I think is a great connector between folklore and radio is, as folklorists, we are taught how to interview people, and that is such an important method for folklore research. Mm-hmm. And so once you get into that frame of mind of talking to somebody, listening to them, because hopefully as you're interviewing them, you're also listening, and then in listening to it again to transcribe, I found it kind of transfixing in the sense of, listening to people, whether it's answering questions about things or telling stories or describing folklore. And I really enjoyed the intimacy of that interaction, and it, for me, connected well with the radio, because before I had started studying folklore, I was a music DJ, and so the main thing for me was playing good music, letting people hear about new bands and that kind of thing. And we can maybe talk about the corporatization of radio in the United States at another time. But this was a time when I wasn't given playlists, and I could play what I wanted to do, what I wanted. And so I had this idea in my head of a radio show and how it works and how it goes, and then was able to really just kind of transplant that on or graft that onto the folklore piece, and carry on that love of that intimacy between people talking and listening.
Kelley, what about yourself?
Yeah, so I think, the listening, it's so key. And to folklore, you mentioned this before we started, but then in our intro too, about, listening makes radio gold. But listening is how you can pay attention to people, and that's one of that's the core of folklore research, is to pay attention. What are we paying attention to, and who are we paying attention to? And so I think, this is talking about folklore. We can think about the news stories, we can think about these reporting facts and all of these things, but in folklore we're asked to listen to facts from people, right? To listen to people's truths. Like what is your truth? How do you experience the world, and how do you understand the world? And then we take that in and we re-listen to it, and we think about it, and we think about, everybody who we're talking to, how they understand the world, and try to hold all of those things together, because they don't always match, and truth is so subjective, right? And so it allows this. I was a journalism major for my undergrad, right? So I think, in journalism terms sometimes too, and what I was taught in that, and it never quite fit for me. And then when I found folklore, it was like, oh, this fits, because it allowed this space for all the gray that our reality is, right? And so I think that's really lovely about it. And then with a lot of the storytelling that Rebecca and Annie, and we'll have Andrea McGuire, who works for CBC, a producer, but also does a lot of storytelling. She'll be at the event tonight as well. And I think in your show, and the way, a lot of the shows I listen to as well, there is this, and the two you mentioned, Radiolab, of course, but This American Life is this as well. There is this room for that kind of diversity of voices and opinions, and a kind of understanding that facts are multiple. There's a lot of different facts, right?
And I think you've already answered it, but when we say folklore, what do we mean? Because I think everyone has their own idea of it, right? I think there's others who may not have actually thought much about it, other than think that there might be some notion out there. So what is it?
That's great. Most of my family thinks I do storytelling or a myth or something like this, and I
folk
study.
Singer.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're folk. Yeah. But I study material culture, so I study stuff. I talk to a lot of objects actually. But
I'm thinking of an IKEA commercial right now. Anyways, we're studying objects. Remember those commercials with IKEA?
I don't, because I listen to the radio.
Darn it! Bad example, Adam. We can keep going. Yeah. So more on folklore.
But yeah. So what is folklore? This is sign up for Folklore 1000.
What is
number
folklore?
one question.
Day one.
Yeah. No kidding. And it's there's so many different definitions about it, but, it's expressive behavior. It's how we behave and express ourselves, in groups informally, but also we can look at folklore informal. I'm sure you have traditions here at the institution of CBC. We have, we have traditions and informal ways of communicating in all of our communities. Do you want to add to our extensive Holly?
Yes, I will.
Good.
I was
Dr.
just
Everett.
thinking, about the occupational folklore of CBC, which is one of, the things that folklorists are interested in, is like the culture of work. And how,
oh gosh, that would be quite the documentary to do. Yeah.
And so one of the first papers I gave was about the disc jockeys who worked at this classical radio station in Austin, Texas, and kind of the understandings about the job and how it worked, but also the informal communication between people at the job. For example, radio can be a very solitary endeavor, especially if you're working for a nonprofit that has little money. Anyway, and I would find weird stuff in my box, that I knew my coworkers had left there for me. And so we would pass these items around. And so I think that a big part of folklore is this understanding of occupations and occupational traditions, small group customs that become meaningful over time.
Right. Rebecca, any thoughts on that? And I'm just kind of curious about, as you studied folklore, then that journey you took more into radio and how you got there.
Yeah. So I was actually in an oral history class. Yeah. So oral history is a lot of interviewing because it's trying to get kind of a kaleidoscope, usually view of an event from a bunch of different people's perspectives. And I was in a class, and Annie actually came and she spoke in the class about kind of what you could do with a folklore degree that wasn't just academia. And she spoke very specifically, I remember, about kind of the magic of interviewing and the magic of the microphone that kind of gives you permission to ask questions that you can ask in everyday life. Like we have set rules on how we interact as humans, and you don't go deep talk really quick. You do small talk, you ask about the weather, you ask about how people are doing. But folklore and the microphone let you do that deep talk. And I really just fell in love with that idea. And I think I ran up to her afterwards and asked her, like, how do you do that? She directed me to Chris Brooks, and he taught me how to do this.
Yeah, Chris Brooks, the late, great Chris Brooks, who's done the master of radio documentaries and radio for this country.
Yeah.
And he sent me a compliment once, and it was the best thing ever.
What was it?
Okay, so he launched an app for Inside Outside the Battery, and what I did for the morning show, because I think it was Anthony Germain's idea, Anthony was like, go with Chris's app and then take your own tour. So what I did was I wove a little bit of Chris's app in, and then I had my own tour of the battery, and we kind of made this piece. And he sent me a note, and he was like, that was really well done, and I really enjoyed it. And I was like, holy crap. Like, that it was just so nice to hear from Chris on it, that he was listening, and that he took the time to say, like, because I, used some of, it was his voice with it too, right? And I didn't ask permission for it. So like, I just kind of went and did it. But so the fact that he liked it was a deeply meaningful, well, it's the compliment I will still remember through my career, right? Annie, what are your thoughts on what we're talking about here?
Yeah, I should just let Rebecca speak for me because clearly I was more articulate back then than I feel today. But I think just what everyone was saying, like there is this sort of blurring of folklore and how it sort of like leads you into this radio path somehow. And I think a lot of that is just getting your hands on a recorder as soon as you start in school. There, it's super scary. Here's this like thing you've never used before, and you're going to point it at someone and you're going to ask them really personal questions, and it's going to be okay. And I was really afraid of that when I started as a student. Very shy, did not want to bother anyone, very apologetic, shaking in the car before I would have to go into someone's home. And they were, of course, incredibly kind, giving me 3 cups of tea and, and just talking my ear off. But like, I think that I was very afraid. I thought I was bothering them, but somehow that fear like meant that it was the right thing for me to do. I felt alive. I felt like a connection with another human in a way that I guess I'd been searching for. Maybe I just needed more friends, but I don't know. Just I think somehow that ability, yeah, as Rebecca was saying, to just unlock this like secret code. Like, okay, now we're allowed to ask anything of each other, and true, like they could ask this stuff of me, and I did find myself like sharing things of my own, and I don't know, so the relationships that you form with these people that then you go on to write a paper that you get like a B- on or whatever, but somehow somehow those moments of connection with the microphone in those outports or wherever you're doing, they loomed large in my mind, and the fear also was like, oh, this feels like I'm alive, I'm doing something that's making me feel alive. And what Holly was saying, like just the fact that you can, study the culture of people at work, and not just in the field, but also photocopying their butts and stuff like just really fun. Like what are people doing in the office? Like the fact that you could study that, and then Gerald Posh's like being like, look at this tombstone. No, look at this tombstone, and just how you're like, I'm looking, but then if you look long enough, you see like the decisions and the choices that humans made or had to make with what the tombstone is made of, or the writing on it, or the images on it. And Bev Diamond saying like, look around this room, people are watching a performance, how are they acting, like how are they holding their beers? That matters, that means something. And just so opening your eyes to the people around you, and watching as well as listening. I think like folklore just totally ignited me to do that more, and then that leads you to like you can use all that creatively as well. So yeah, honestly I can't remember what the question was, but
I think you're feeling it great. I mean, I think it's
Okay.
not a B. I'm giving A plus. A plus on that.
Oh my gosh, well I'm gonna keep that forever.
Yeah. Oh, hey, this is the moment right here.
Yeah, I needed that, honestly.
When for interviewing, when do you folks start to feel like? When I think of when I do it, and so you think about storytelling and interviewing someone, but there's responsibility that comes with it, and also I think when you start to get to enough interviews under your belt, you also feel a little bit of. I always compare it to driving a bus, and I'm the bus driver. And sometimes when I'm driving the bus of an interview, like if someone's in studio, and we're talking about an emotional moment, I know I can drive the bus down this emotional path, and there can be emotion. I can also stay on the road where I'm driving. And that's a conscious choice I have with for this person in front of me. Do we want to go? And sometimes, of course, this is what they're there for and they want this. Other times it's like, you know what? I'm not bringing us there because I don't think this person would like, and it's that kind of a thought. Well, I don't know whether it's folklore or just on the professional, on the radio side and the podcasting and the storytelling side of it. I'm just curious about your thoughts, your folks' thoughts on that.
Well, for my master's research, I interviewed people about roadside memorials.
Yeah.
And this was mainly in Texas, where I'm from, that I did this work. And so I thought a lot about this.
Yeah.
I was a brand new folklorist and was experiencing all those things that Rebecca and Annie talked about in terms of nervousness and, what am I doing? What am I asking these people to talk to me about, And that was a really good experience for me because I felt at the outset sort of great responsibility for even asking them to talk about these things in the first place. And so I tried to really let them guide the conversation. And if we needed to stop, then we would stop, and then afterwards I would drive a little ways down the road and cry, honestly, because when you're a new student, and you have all these great ideas, and you're like, yes, that's fantastic, I'll do that, and then you get into it, and you kind of the kind of emotional weight of what you're doing kind of hits you, maybe. And so it's a great experience for a student to go through that, to understand, really what it is the emotional aspect of this, research that you're doing, and the responsibility you have to your interviewees, and the relationships that you develop in some of these cases.
So when you're driving out the Trans-Canada Highway and you drive by a roadside memorial, right? They're there. It could be a teddy bear on a tree. It's a cross.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Right.
How has this now? What has lasted with you from that until now for noticing as you drive out?
Well, I always notice them. I can't not notice them.
Yeah.
What has been interesting to me is from the time that I started that work, which is around 1997, was kind of just the beginning of the more widespread shrine making that we have seen since that time. So where now, when I first started that research, it was more of an unusual thing, except in places like Texas, which had these long traditions of memorials or descansos, to where now it's expected. And there's going to be a picture with the article, online, the picture of the memorial that goes with whatever the incident is. And unfortunately, a lot of those kinds of tragedies have been increasing, for which people make memorials, and I'm thinking here of school shootings, for example.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I find myself, I look at park benches a lot with the nameplates, like a lot. Like when I go for runs, I'll look, and sometimes there's certain ones I remember, and I'm like, I wonder, who were these people, and what's the the conversation around why did you want to put the bench? What did this place mean to you? What's that story and that connection to the place and time as time moves on?
Right.
Rebecca, what about yourself when it comes to whether it's the responsibility or just the understanding, as you kind of have grown with interviewing, what the ability is for you as the conductor of the interview?
I think it really depends on the project that you're working on.
Yeah.
So in Folklore, what I learned basically is that the interviewee is driving. You're there to help facilitate them telling their story. And you can kind of nudge in directions, but they're the one 100% who is driving.
Perfect.
With journalism, that's not the case. And I don't do a lot of hard-hitting journalism, but I have done much more formulaic podcasts. I worked with the History Channel for a little bit, and you have a layout of how you imagine that episode is going to go and the questions you're going to ask to make it go in that direction. And that is night and day from what I learned from Folklore.
So then where does listening, so if you have the structured bit, right? But then you've got the Folklore side where you're listening, they're driving the bus, but then on this other side, you're kind of like the bus driver. Where does listening come in at, the bits of just stepping outside of perhaps what the structure is when you're that is better than the thing I have on this piece of paper?
Yeah. I mean, that's how you do good radio, right? Is you have your plan, but you also have to be open to spontaneity because that's where the magic happens. Who was it? I forget if I was talking to Chris ages ago about if you know the piece that you want to make before you make it, the piece doesn't have to exist because we already have the answer kind of thing.
Oh, that's so good.
Which I think a lot of people would have a lot of opinions on. But I kind of like that. I'm working on a piece right now where I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to do my outline to give my editor before I do it. But I don't know what the piece is yet. And I'm having a really hard time doing it. So I'm really curious, Annie, how that works for you guys, because you guys are doing such a bigger scale of radio. So I'm imagining you guys are going to have things much more planned out.
Planned out? You'd think we would be planned out. I think a lot of it is having a sense of the story you want, but then, as you say, going in and being I hope it's not that, because that's boring. I already know that. And when it's about something like, Adam, as you were saying, driving the bus, deciding whether to go down that road or not, I really think it's you have to be a human first, and you have to feel that person out. And I think I try to, sometimes the job feels extractive, you're just I'm here to take your story and I'll do what I want with it. But I think that in that moment, you are a human listening to another human, and you are listening to them probably harder than anyone has ever listened to them before. You are there with them as their son dies, and you are asking details. You want to know every single thing about that, which is the most important moment of their life, so I think and also paying attention to their body language if you're with them, or the falter in their voice. Like you can, if you listen hard enough to those quiet things, you can tell if someone is like, this doesn't feel good, or this feels great and emotion is what I need right now. And so I think knowing to gently move forwards or to take a break. And you can also take a break, like let's get a glass of water, let's talk tomorrow, like there's no rush to get this very important thing to come to life with you. So just being a human, I think, is, and that's with folklore, I think, and with radio. If you're lucky enough to have the time to be a human, I know sometimes you need to quick turn around and you're just, reporting on the bus routes or something, and maybe humanity is not quite at the forefront of that breaking news. But yeah,
I think it's a great like through what I'm at CBC 14 years and change now. Like it's something that I've talked about with colleagues over the years. Like you have these moments and these decisions, and the be a human bit is the great. If that's if that should just be your base, I think for a lot of folks. Like like everything else is jumping off from there. Are you just being a human right now? Because that is I think in the long run, if you keep going back to that, that's the one that's going to make you feel good about yourself over the years through all the stories, whether it's
definitely.
the bus routes or the more intimate
That's true.
stuff.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. Yeah.
No, I think it's a great example. Like because it's when we talk about radio, like the range is like you've got your traffic reporters out there, right, talking about traffic, and then you've got folks talking about roadside memorials. You've got people coming on to talk about, like on Monday on this show, it's the co-chairs of the Education Accord, and it's a completely different discussion. But that range of just be a human is I think a really nice lesson. Can I ask? Do you remember the story you folks did, the Humpback and the Killer?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you okay to talk about that briefly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
So because I want to I was really curious about doing this because if we're talking about folklore, I want to kind of weave as I talk about how my thought process for what's about to happen, but to weave some folklore bits through this and have some input from everyone here. But John Pike, who's tech on the show today, we've got 45, 50 seconds of just the start of this.
Oh God.
Okay, so we're just going to play the first minute of Radiolab, and honestly, when this thing starts, it brings me back 16, 17 years ago. So let's for the beginning of the stories from 2022. So let's roll it.
Oh, wait, you're listening.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
You're
Listening
to Radiolab.
Radio Lab.
From
WNYC.
See?
Yeah.
You guys want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. I'm Lulu Miller.
My name is Egg McMuffin, and I had a yogurt for breakfast.
Okay, never mind. Okay.
Latif.
Lulu.
Radiolab.
All right. And producer, Annie McEwen.
Where should I begin? So we're heading out into the Antarctic Peninsula, which is the arm of Antarctica that kind of sticks up north.
Sure.
We're on a boat, nosing along the icy coast, and on the boat with us...
Hi, Annie.
Hi, is this grizzled, mustachioed sea guy. Are you Robert or Bob?
Bob is good.
Okay, named Bob Pittman.
All right, that's the start. Annie, talk to us a bit about I love the Radiolab beginning, but then right away, the hook is there of just getting folks into this. But just talk to us a bit about this story, and then let's weave some folklore through it.
Okay, I just think irreverence is one of my favorite things, and luckily enough, I get to do that a lot at my job. It's kind of is this irreverent enough? Let's make it so you get to be yourself, and that's why it sounds very silly. But out of context, God, we are children sometimes. But anyway, so this is a story about. I think a lot of people know about this sort of amazing thing where humpbacks are saving things in the ocean from orcas. And when I stumbled across this, I was like, dear God, this is amazing. All I want is a feel-good piece. And, because there was a lot going on. I think it was COVID plus everything. But just, yeah, so this guy, Bob Pittman, saw these humpbacks save the seal again and again from these pods of orcas. And even so much as lifting the seal onto its back, the humpback turned over and lifted the seal, pulled the seal onto its stomach, and then held it out of the water away from the orcas who were annoyed and had to leave. And I just, anyway, so that's sort of the beginning of just asking why and why would they do this, and sort of kicking around the word altruism and how uncomfortable that is for scientists to think about animals as altruistic and that sort of thing. But I think like it's a good example of fairy tale, like the use of like fairy tale narrative structure, actually, because there's lots of things happen in threes in this story, and that was luckily enough mostly how it went. And sometimes I was like, oh, I need a third element, and that's a very like classic fairy tale thing. There's three brothers, and the first two are dum-dums, but the last one is like short but also really strong for he's got a magic something or other. And so there's like, yeah, this three thing is very powerful as a storytelling technique, and using, so that, yeah, threes are littered throughout this this episode. And yeah, I don't know, do you want me to just tell you way more, or what? What do you want?
So this is the perfect jumping off point. So okay. let me look at the folklore profs in the room. So link this back. How is this going? Right. It sounds great to me. I loved this, the Humpback and the Killer. There's a reason why
it was fun.
When I was thinking of Radiolab, I was like, what Radiolab show could I mention? I was like, oh, that one, yes.
Oh, that's fun.
So what do you folks think?
Well, it's wonderful to hear somebody like Annie, who I've known for a while, talking about folklore and the significance of it in her work. And there's a part of me and maybe other profs who's like, they listened.
Oh, good. I thought you were going to say, but she got it all wrong.
Yeah, no. People are actually listening. But it's really great to hear, because even just thinking about this event, made me realize how intertwined radio work and folklore work has been for people and can be. And that, these skills, not just the information, not just knowing, the child numbers for all the ballads or something like that, these practical skills of relating to people and creating these radio pieces is a wonderful application of folklore and folkloristics.
Kelley, what about yourself?
Yeah, well, I think I love this as well, too. And I love any story about whales. What I love more than radio are whales.
Yeah.
Which is why one of the reasons I love living here. Yeah. But I think this, I don't study fairy tales. But we know these tropes of a fairy tale, right? We know these kinds of patterns. It's patterns of behavior too. And so I love that, Annie, you've taken these things, and Rebecca talked about this the other day too. But what fairy tales are these expressions that people have come up with out of their stories, out of their lives. They come from somewhere, right? They're not just made out of the blue, but they get repeated and shared and passed around, and then we learn from that. And so I think, Annie, you said the other day when we were on the phone together, we were all talking something about fairy tales being the best editor. 100 years in an audience. I wrote it down. I was trying to look exactly for it, but yeah.
Perfect story structures, because they've been edited over hundreds of years and by many audiences. So they've honed it to perfection.
Yeah, and those fairy tales exist because of people, right? People started these things. Any of our traditions start somewhere, right? And we make these things and we share them and we improve them over time through this collective, coming together. So I love that that's shaping your radio stories as well, too. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
For whether talking about folklore and, understanding a place better, right? How people hold a drink, to how they, this, workplace custom around the water cooler or whatever it is. Radio also helps us get a sense of place, right? So Rebecca, for yourself, from showing up here to study folklore, right? Like being like, hey, folklore department, where's it? Oh, Newfoundland. So, and like you mentioned, like you didn't know about Newfoundland and Labrador until
not even a little bit.
Yeah, like not even a bit. Yeah, and I've it's the same with some of my American friends when I've lived abroad. I'm like, a friend of mine from Chicago. She's like, so where? I'm like, the Big Island off the coast of North America, the right-hand edge. Like, I don't really. I'm like, anyways, thank you. But so
really big.
I'm like, it's not small. I'm not talking about PEI here, folks. We're talking Newfoundland. My apologies to all of Prince Edward Island for that statement. Great island. Love Anna Green Gables potatoes. Candy, you're not helping. How has it helped you for radio for the time and place and learning about this? Like, so because you come in and you not only like listen to radio and go through, you start making it.
Yeah. Folklore really changed the way that I viewed Newfoundland and learned about Newfoundland.
Yeah.
And radio just kind of like pumped that up to 11.
Mm.
Like, I don't know, because it gives you excuses to go places that you wouldn't go otherwise because you're chasing a story. So you get to experience different outports. You get to experience different cultures and be in people's houses and yeah.
Yeah. So then,
it's great for nosy people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Really, though, because you get to go everywhere. Like, it is one of my favorite things about this job.
And ask questions.
You get to go in, and people are going to come and talk to you. And that's so awesome. And like when we bring this show on location to different communities, a lot of times, like, we kind of come in with the way I do it for this is just like, what do you want to talk about? Mm-hmm. Like, that's it. It's like, what would you like to do? You want to brag about your community? Do you want to complain about your community? Do you want to tell me something about the history of your community? Or do you want to look down the road to the future of it? And each time it is so, it just grips me from each person because it is stuff they're passionate about. And when you talk to passionate people on the radio, it makes good radio, I find. Mm-hmm. Tell me some standout stories or where would you still, either where you would still like to go or what's some place that you got into in this province that was like, wow.
I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
What about Elias? You were talking about your story with Elias the other day.
Oh, yeah. That was out in the Battery. Yeah. So I did a story, I think it was my first story for CBC actually here, about a man named Elias who lives in the Battery. And if you go to the Battery at all, you definitely know Elias. He's the one with the Vespa. And he... Yeah. And he's amazing. I love him so much. And I went there and it was my first radio piece that I ended up selling and my first big girl radio piece. And I went in and I did the total folklore thing where I interviewed him, say 4 or 5 hours.
I was going to say, I was like, how long was this interview?
Oh, it was a lot. And it was consecutive. It was we'd go months and then I'd go back and months and go back because I was trying to trace a pear tree through kind of the seasons. That was originally the idea because he was growing a pear tree in the Battery.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, because you don't think of a pear tree being able to grow in the Battery because it's rocky and windy, and also just I don't imagine fruit trees naturally growing here all the time. That's just how my brain was at the time. Mm-hmm. And it turned into this really lovely relationship. And I ended up playing him the piece before I submitted it to kind of get his permission, basically, because it was his story, which I know I see your eyes as a journalist. That is a no-no. You don't do that.
No. Well, I mean, there's a conversation to be had around it for sure. Yeah.
But it was basically a am I allowed to put the story out kind of thing.
Well, I think with what you invested in that, that wasn't a 5-minute. It's not like you going interviewing someone, about a pear tree and a Vespa for 5 minutes, and then asking permission because that would be odd. But spending that amount of time with someone. And it was
also such a deeply personal story for him.
So I completely understand that.
Yeah. But I remember I was talking to Rob Rosenthal, who runs Transom that Annie and I both went to, and told him about that. And he was like, that makes me so uncomfortable to think about taking this thing that you made and then you're giving the power back to the person. And you're being like, am I allowed to put this out into the world? Which is a really big folklore thing.
Yeah, because I did that once, and then the person didn't like it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, not making that mistake again.
Yeah.
But that's why what I do for my job is I front load the conversation of here's what you can expect, here's where we're going, here's what the end result will be, here is where it will land, here is what some of may happen with you doing this. And I try to make people as aware as possible of what they're getting into. So it is very permission front loaded on stuff. And luckily, most of what I do is live. So it's already it's done. You've already done it. Annie, what about yourself? For when you search for stories and pitch these stories and start to think them through, like, tell me a bit more about your process.
Oh, just in general, or the whether or not to.
Or hey, choose your own adventure. Or you can do both.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, like how to find a story is always like a hard question to answer because every time you do it feels like, and I found the last story on earth, and there are no more stories to find because that took forever. But yeah, there's many ways to sometimes, a footnote in an article, it turns into a story, or sometimes being in a museum and hearing about a little thing, and then you look more into that, or talking to people, friends telling you ideas. My husband loves various science magazines, and he's always sending me emails about them, and sometimes they turn into things. So you never know where they come from. But then, yeah, it's just a long road of interviewing those people and then putting this thing together and kicking around various story shapes in the editing room before you settle on something. And you make many drafts because as you're making the piece with these interviews, you're also including sound design and music because it's very much just like day one part of the feel and the build of the story. So you're doing a lot of, it's not efficient in any way, honestly. It's like, it makes me crazy. It's a crazy job, but yeah. And then ultimately you spit out a story. Often it takes 4 to 6 months. We don't, it's sort of against policy at New York Public Radio to play the stories for the people who we interviewed, but we do have third-party fact checkers that go over with like a fine-tooth comb every detail, and they go over that with the interviewee and make sure that they know exactly what is being said and make sure that it's true to them and exactly what they feel happened, and that's what we can promise, I guess.
How nervous do you get when before each one launches about whether it's the people in it or just like there's the audience, which is obviously crucially important, but the intimate part of the folks involved. Like, do you get nervous about it, or is it just like we're launching this and we put a lot into it?
Totally, definitely, yes. It's so scary. Especially if it's about someone's life, then you're just God, I hope we got this right. And you just check your email, and then you just, run and hide from your email for a while, and you just like, but then you usually get like a little like, thank you for, or that was awful and I hate you, but that doesn't usually happen. But yeah, it's horrifying. Like you're presenting someone's life back to them with a lot of, like, it also has to be entertaining, which is like sometimes in conflict with, how stories are sometimes told. Like my job is to be entertaining as well as truthful, and that's a fine line to walk. And so, that's kind of why it takes so long, I think, getting that right.
Yeah, that it's the entertainment bit. I mean, we're in media, and it needs to be interesting because if it's just like eat your, bran flakes. Eventually,
people will turn it off.
Well, people stop eating the bran flakes after a couple spoonfuls. Right? Like put some sugar on that. Maybe even throw the bran flakes out and give me a different breakfast altogether.
Lobster.
Right. That's the difference with academic work too. Nobody has to really care about what I'm doing. It seems,
that's true. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
But there's so many, like from the folklore discussion too. Like, I'm hearing it through the discussion of just with Annie and Rebecca talking about finding stories and where you can get stuff from, like all of that. I'm like, it all sounds really interesting to me, but it's also in a way foreign to me for how I came into news and reporting and everything else. And like all these examples, just the little like the footnote or something, like, oh, that's a great idea. I keep thinking like, oh, that's a great idea, and it's just not in my. I did a poli-sci degree. I didn't do folklore. Now I'm having a bunch of regret here today on the radio of what I studied.
There's still time.
There's still time. Maybe we should go back to maybe we should go back to school, or just a regular folklore bit every Friday on the Signal. Adam learns folklore.
Sure.
Right? You got a lot of folklorists in town. You probably could.
I mean, there's not a shortage of folklorists in and around town. I know a few. There's been a bunch who've been on the show already, and they've all been fantastic. But so when you hear, like, again, we touched on it, but when you hear these examples of even just the notions of how to get to a story, and then you think like, this is some of this. I mean, not to take away from the talent of folks, but like some of this it's through the whether it's training or like the way folks get wired earlier on in their education that assists with what is perhaps naturally there anyways.
Yeah, I mean, you said this earlier. You said something about when you go on runs and you see on the side of a park bench,
Yeah.
right? You know, you notice this. We all can do folklore research, right? Because folklore is about people. It's the stuff we do. It's in our lives. Like you can't, everybody has it, you know? And we all can pay attention to each other and understand our cultures and our traditions. I think some of us are attuned, you know, are interested in these things, right? That's how we all got into it in some way or another to study more. And, you know, we're just starting a new semester. I just had my first class yesterday with
How was it?
Great. We have the best students of all time.
Of all time?
Of all time.
Okay, noted. I mean, you just made it really awkward. I am out of here.
You know, folklore. It's all folklore, guys. Just lying. No. But really, it's always really exciting, right, to meet the new students and to see, you know, a group of people who are just like me when I was there, you know, a while ago. And for people to find this kind of, well, what it was for me when I got into folklore studies and found this avenue to talk to people and to learn from people and to be nosy and to get to look at all. I love stuff, you know, I love craft and I love to just go and learn about those things. And so I'm kind of going away from what we were talking about just a second ago, though. You're going to have to remind me. But no, just I did forget what I was saying.
You were talking about people's natural curiosity and the ways that can be harnessed in, say, folklore.
Yeah, and so when you're in, thank you, Holly. Thank you, Dr. Everett.
You're both really good. This is like I can see how you've worked together before, right? In tune.
But I mean, it is a skill on how to listen, right? Mm-hmm. And so we can practice it like anything else, as we were talking in class yesterday, you know? And so we practice how to pay attention. And there's the recording, the interviews is really important, but before you get there, you've paid attention to all these different things. You've taken notes on it. You have a kind of method for how you do that. And so just that practicing and doing it over and over. So it is talent. It is a skill to do these things, but any talent has to be, you know, practiced and developed, right? Yeah.
I'll ask both Rebecca and Annie this question. Have you, because I've done this, have you ever messed up a record and then come back and
yeah.
And tell us about that feeling.
It's the worst feeling. It's really, really bad. Luckily, I only ever did it once, knock on wood. And it was at CHMR, and it was for a new book that was coming out. I was interviewing an author, and she very kindly came back the next day and did the entire hour-long interview again. But that is not always the case.
Yeah, I did it. It was someone in the community. When I was a reporter for the morning show, I went out and then came back, and I was like, why is there nothing in this file? Oh, my gosh. And I had the phone. I'm like, hey, you know how you met me in the place to do the thing? Can we do that all again? And I'm so sorry. Annie, what about yourself? Have you ever messed up like the rest of us here?
Oh, for sure messed up. And I think, it's even recording myself, like tracking for an hour and a half in the middle of the night and then realizing that I had been not recording the whole time and I have to do it all over again and being exhausted. But I think that I mess up more just worrying about it. Like I'll look constantly, my eyes go to the recording button. Is it red? Is it red? Is it red? It's red. Okay. And I'm like not listening to the person in front of me because I'm like, I hope I'm recording this. But you know, it's a fear that I think we will all live and take with us into our grave. Probably it's just about the worst thing that can happen. So.
Yeah, I watched the seconds move and everything. I'm like, 56, 57. Yes, keep going. Oh, this is so good. The person's still talking. You know.
I know. Here we are talking about how we're such great listeners and we're actually really good at watching the lights on the recorder.
Yeah.
So good at that.
It's too real. Okay. This is the point where we say the show is almost over. Remind us for tonight.
Yes,
what's happening?
I'm going to read it here. So tonight's program, it's called Listening to People, Folklore on the Radio. It'll be at the Rooms, in the Rooms Theater from 7 to 8:30 p.m. And it's free, but it is ticketed. So they ask you to register in advance, which you can do online, or you can call 709-757-8090. And we have Annie McEwen, who you've heard today, Rebecca Nolan, and then also Andrea McGuire will be joining us remotely from Happy Valley Goose Bay.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, folks, if you got nothing to be at tonight, there's a great suggestion for you.
Even if you have something to be at tonight, cancel.
Cancel it. Who
Yeah,
cares?
show
Right?
up.
Cancel it,
Yeah,
right?
come listen to people.
Spontaneous.
You know?
Just flake on your friends.
Yeah. Oh.
Annie, welcome back home. Good luck tonight. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
And I can't wait to hear more from Radiolab.
Hooray.
All right. Thanks, folks. This has been really great. It's been fun talking about
Ben.
folklore
Thank you.
on the radio.
Can't wait to have you in class.
Yes,
Yes.
And yes, I will register for the next semester, and
We'll be
hopefully
looking for you.
You know what? Second time around, I might get some better grades. So here we go.
I don't care about grades.
Even you're my favorite type of prof. All right, everyone.
Look for her classes.
That is it for the show today. Thank you so much for listening. If you have questions for us, the signal at cbc.ca. You can call the signal line and leave a message, 709-576-5260. Monday, we dig into the Education Accord with both co-chairs of the Accord joining me here in the studio. Do you have questions about the Education Accord or questions for the co-chairs? We will be taking your calls on Monday. Thanks for listening, folks. Cheers.